When you can combine a data science project with one of your hobbies, you know you're going to be in for a very good time. Well, one of my hobbies is collecting cards, really sports cards and also non-sports cards. And I sell a lot of cards on a website called CheckOutMyCards, also known as COMC. Well, the problem with COMC is the seller stats are pretty lacking. You can see the number of cards that are sold each month and the volume, but that's about it. But there is one thing that I do like. You get to see a spreadsheet of each individual card that is sold. And that's a very good positive because what we can do is we can extract a ton of data from the spreadsheet. So the goal of this project here today is to build out a Streamlit application where any COMC seller can upload their spreadsheet into the Streamlit app and kind of a dashboard of statistics. So that way they know, what cards are they making the most profit on, what cards are they making the least amount of profit on, and have some data to show like what is their actual profit, because you can't really see that. You see the gross amount of cards that were sold and the volume associated with it, but you have no idea how profitable you are or like how much you're marking up on cards that you're flipping on the website. So before we do jump into coding, which I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code for this, I'm just going to jump into COMC to give you guys a little bit more context and show you as well as an early diagram that I developed before building out the project. I've already been testing out this project a little bit with some other top COMC sellers and have gotten some great feedback from them. So let's jump into that first. All right, so I loaded up COMC over here. Here's the statistics that you see as a seller. So you go over here to seller stats and you have purchases, donations, sales by month, sales by year, sales by batch, and promotion. In my COMC videos that I make, just recapping what I do each month, I usually go to sales by month, and you can see that they have the month over here, the year, as well as total sales and number of cards sold. And no wrong, like this is some beneficial statistics to see really fast, but it's not really good. Like you can't see how many baseball cards are sold, how many cards that you added to the site versus just reflipping on the site. There's a lot of issues with it, and I wanted to improve that. Now, where we can get our individual stuff at, or like the individual sales, you go here to sales history, and you can actually download a spreadsheet. So if you go here to download sales history, and I'm just download this really quick and load up this CSV, and let me populate this over here. You can see we have an item ID, sport, set name, card number, description, serial number, quantity, right? Purchase price. What you'll see with purchase price, if it's blank, that's something that you added yourself to the website. So COMC doesn't know your like amount of value that you put into that card versus if it does have a number, you purchased it on COMC itself. So it already knows the sales price, COMC credit, right? Any fees associated, promotion fees, date sold, etc., right? Purchase by when you acquired the card and if it's been returned. But there's a ton of data over here. You can see who's buying from you and whatnot. So what I wanted to do is greatly expand this. And the first thing I did is I thought of how I could design this out. So first thing I was thinking about is the input. And what I showed you was the current year spreadsheet. You can also get past years as well. So what I want to do first is get the current year and also the past year and make that as the input. So a seller will upload either one spreadsheet or multiple spreadsheets, and that's going to be what's inputted over here and turned into one spreadsheet. We'll merge them together. Next, there's different filters. So originally I put date. I separated date into both purchase date and also acquired date, then manual versus flip, sports, and then also the purchase price. I think those are the only filters that I had. There might be one more, but this was, again, a very early schema design that I had. And then I just put report over here. There's a lot of different data points that I ended up putting into this report, and you guys will be taking a look at that. But also to call out, like, this app, which I'll load it up right now for you guys. So here's the COMC app that I built out. And you can see I drag and drop a spreadsheet in here. And you can select the sold date, the acquired date, sales price, added versus flipped, and then categories. There's stuff that I want to still add in the future. This is just like the first version of this. I'm actually going to ask the subscribers of my card YouTube channel ways that I could improve it so that way I can get the community more involved. But like you can see, select all button in the future. I could build this out right now, or I could build this out in the future and add more updates. And that's what I'm going to do. But you can see like sports breakdown, decade over here, distribution, some quick stats over here, which will grab all this from the spreadsheet. Even more stats breakdown. So like profit associated with this category, like what's the markup median, days to sale, annualized return, profits by quantile, days of sale by quantile. And the reason why I want to see like days of sales, we want to see like liquidity, what sport or non-sport sells the fastest. So you can see like what the 50% is. Like most of my stuff sells about 36 days. Some of the fastest stuff, 3 days. The slowest, 133 days. Which this will expand out even more as I grow this portfolio of cards. But you can also see markup. Like my average markup on something is 37%, which isn't too bad. Boxing's crazy at 700%. But that's a little bit of a data gap, and we'll talk about this data gap in a minute. I mean, we already did about cards that were added to the site that have no price, but I can see like analyzed return too, which is a pretty good metric. I suck at flipping golf cards at -% there. I didn't sell a ton of golf cards, so there's also that element of it, but I didn't do that great. Non-sports I did awesome in, right? Boxing I did awesome in. So that's stuff I have to put a little bit more time into. But regardless, this is what we'll be building out today. So if you're interested, make sure to stay around and also subscribe to the channel, because these videos do take a lot to make, especially these more project videos between planning, prepping them out, making sure all the code works, etc. So with that out of the way, let's start coding. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna import in a bunch of stuff. So import Streamlit as st, then import in pandas as pd, import matplotlib.pyplot as plt, then import, which let me just fix that above. Got my eye. There we go. We're going to be importing in, I think it's datetime that's next. Yeah, datetime. Well, it should be from datetime. From datetime, import datetime and time delta. And then lastly, we're going to import in RE for regular expression. I don't have a video yet on this. At least on matplotlib, I have a lot of different machine learning videos, which I do cover matplotlib in, but nothing for regular expressions yet. It's on my backlog. I promise like within a month or so, that'll be on the channel. All right. So what I'm also going to do, we're going to say st.set page config, and we're going to set layout to equals wide like that. And wide should be in quotes. So wide. Awesome. Now, in my code, I do have some functions that are above for extracting out names and years. I'm not going to put those in here yet. We'll come back and go write these at the very top of the code, but we are going to start with our main. So main like this, and let's start coding. So the first thing that I want to put in here is our title. So st title like that. And then I'm going to say COMC seller stats explain. And underneath it, and I'm not going to write it all out, but I put in some st.writes. And just to show you what this looks like, that's this text over here, right? Feel free to put whatever text you want in your project, but this is what I'm putting in on mine. And let me go back over here. I'm just going to copy this because no need to waste all your guys' time with that. And that's essentially how I made those 4 lines. And from my COMC store, if you want to put in a link, this is how you put in a link, right? And I just put my email me over here. If you guys are interested in some projects for your business or some data polls or whatever, I'm open for opportunities. So awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is build out our file uploader. So that is this right here where it says drag and drop files here. So let me load this back up and we'll write this out. So we'll say files equals st.file uploader, and then we'll just say upload multiple spreadsheets, say CSV only, then type equals CSV, type equals like that. And then there's an argument over here called accept multiple files, and we're going to set that equal to true. Okay, so file uploader, say some text in there. Type, we define what type of file we want, CSV, and we want to accept multiple files. Awesome. So we're going to say if files, which means something has to be uploaded, and we're going to create a df list, and we'll just keep this blank right now. And then we're going to say for files, or for file in files, right? We're looking at each of these files, which it could be 1, or it could be, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we're going to look inside over here. We're going to say df file equals pd, which is for pandas, read CSV, and then put file in here. So for each individual file, and I don't have to put file, I could put X, Y, whatever. But for this loop, right, we're looking at each file in this file is the file uploader, and df file is going to be equal to reading that CSV file. Then what we're going to say is this df list over here, right? We're going to append the data frame file. So append this df file. And that's how you can combine multiple CSVs all together pretty easily. Okay. Then we're going to go down over here and we're going to say df equals pd concat. This is our last step on here. And we're going to concat all of the data frames that are in this df list, right? So this df list over here, and then we're going to ignore the index. So ignore index equals true. So just to walk through the code again, we have this file uploader. It has one file, or it could have multiple files to jump into this code, right? That's why we're looking at the files. Then we have this list over here. It's empty. For each of these files right here, we're going to read in the CSV, and then we're going to append that file that's been read into this df list. And then we're just going to concat this df list over here and ignore the index. Awesome. So now let's start working on some of our filters. So the first filter we're going to have over here, we'll see st.title, and this one's going to be called sold date range selector. In my opinion, this is probably one of the most popular selectors out there, but I don't know yet. Not a lot of people are using the application as of yet. Then what I'm going to do is say date range selector equals st dot select box, like that. And the first thing we're going to put in here is say select date range. So select date range, and we'll put a few things. So we'll say custom last 7 days, last 30 days, last 90 days, then I had 180, last 180 days. You could really expand this out. You could say last year, last 2 years, whatever you want, right? I just put these, and then I set the key to this one. Key equals sold dates, and that is that one over here. Then we're going to say if date range option, so date range, and this should also be option, not selector. I apologize. I have all my source code here on the right, so I'm reading that off as I type, but we're going to say if date range option equals custom. I could not spell today. Say that it's 8 o'clock on a Friday. Okay. So regardless, if it's custom, So our min date equals pd dot to date time. Then we're going to say df date sold dot min dates. That's okay. Then we're going to have next is a max date. So just change this up for max. Then we need to have our start and end dates. So we'll say start date equals st dot date input. And this should also be 1 equals 9, not 2. I was wondering why I had an error, but st dot date input. Put over here start dates, and then min value equals the min dates, which we have over here. Max value equals this max date that we have over here. And then value equals, and this is going to be the min dates. Then we're going to literally just copy everything over again. So just copy that. And then this time we're going to put max date at the very end. So max date. Then we're going to have an elif. So let's go over here and say elif. We'll say the date range option. So we'll grab that again. Equals last 7 days. Then what we're going to do is we're going to have end dates equals date time dot now dot date. And then what we're going to have is start date equals, and we're going to have this end date minus time delta 6. Oops. And essentially, I'm going to do the same thing for 30 days, 90 days, and 100 days, or 180 days. So I'm just going to copy in that code. It is a bit tedious typing all that out. And that is how we do it. So one more line over here just to finish our filtering. What I'm going to do is set up filtered df. And so that's going to be equal to df. And inside over here, we're going to have two things. So make sure you put parentheses and then in over here. So we're going to say pd dot to date time. And then inside, oops, I put them in the wrong section. pd dot to date time like that. Then inside over here, we're going to look at df or date sold. That's say dot dt dot dates greater than or equal to our start dates. Okay, and then literally, I guess we could just copied and pasted this. Probably been easier. And we'll just paste this over here. And this time, I'm going to change this to our end dates. I think that should give us everything. So let me explain this code section. What we're doing is we're creating a select box here first, right? Obviously, we're doing a title. Then we have a date range select box. So if I go back to my app over here, that's this select box here. So you can see custom 7, 30, 90, or 100 days, right? I have a start date and end date if we do custom. And then if I go 90 days, there's nothing else over here. So that's why we set those up. So just going back to this code, right? we have all those options. We set a key to this as a sold date. Custom, right? Then you have your min and max. You have your start date over here. And this should also be end date, not start date there. Again, I'm probably gonna make a few errors, so make sure to copy the code directly from GitHub, but this will explain it. And I should change this to end dates over here, the min value, and then that's the max. So this grabs the min and maximum values based off of like dates that have been sold as your defaults. Then if you want to choose 7 days, 30, 90, or 180 days, right? Our end date is going to be considered the time now, and then the start date, minus 6 days. So that'll give you your 7-day volume, and etc. Just going across the board, 29, 89, and 109. Lastly, I filter the data frame. So filter data frame. We have our data frame over here, DF, right? So that's our DF from above. And then we look at this date sold because we're looking at sold date first, right? Greater than the start date, less than the end date down below. So now what we're going to do is take a look at the acquired. And I didn't show you specifically on this spreadsheet. Oh, I did just going through it, but just to show you, date sold is right here. And that's the time format that we have. This is the previous year, as you can see, 12/31. But now we're going to look at the acquisition date. So it's literally going to be pretty much the same exact code. I'm just going to copy and paste this over here just to save a little bit of time. And I'll show you a little bit of differences because it's almost the same. If it was a little bit different, I would show you a little more, but we have a lot to cover in this video. All right, so title, acquired date, right? Select date range, 7, 30, 90, 180, same thing. You have to change your date or your key on here. So this one I put as sales date originally, but I should change that up because over here we have sold date. I need to change this to something else instead of sales date. We'll put acquired date. And I'm actually gonna update my code that I have here on GitHub too. Let me just load that up over here. It's in one of these. Okay, then we have the custom, right? This time we're taking a look at acquisition date. Again, our acquisition date is right there. Start date, same thing, right? Min, end date, max, 7 days, 30, 90, all the way through 180. Exact same code. I just didn't want to waste your guys' time with that. And then we also have a filter down below. Same exact thing for filtering, right? So let me just paste that in. Filter data frame to date time, acquisition date, start date, acquisition, right? A little bit different. You can see min date, ACQ, start date, ACQ. But we're taking a look at that over here. And with that out of the way, let's take a look at our next option. So next thing we're going to be taking a look at is our sales price selector. So that's going to be over here, and I'll show you that. So sold date, right? Acquired date. Then we have the sales price, very similar, right? We have 3 sections. We have a custom. You also have under 39 cents, 75, 251, over 250. I'm not going to explain entirely the reason why we have these on COMC, but a TLDR, sellers tend to bucket cards in specific price categories. So like under 39 cents is considered like very cheap cards. Then you have 75 cents, which you don't get charged specific fees on if the card's under 75 cents. Under 251, same thing with fees. If they're under $2.50, you aren't subject to certain fees if you have a certain account threshold, and then anything over that. So we're just going to build that out really fast. It's going to be very similar. So put in your title. So st.title, right? Sales price selector. And then we're going to do another option. It's literally identical to what we've had, right? So sales price option, select box, select range, right? We have custom 39, 75, 250, over 250. And then I actually, in my source code, I had the right thing originally. All right, and then I have this select box, which is identical, right? Select sales price range, same stuff over here, and just change your key. I have sales price final. So now we're just gonna do some of the basic if and else's. So what we're gonna say is if sales price option equals custom And just to show you, it's a little bit different this time. I forgot the colon over here, but we're going to say min price equals 0.01. Then we'll have max price equals, I think I put 100,000 or 10,000. Can't remember. I put 100,000 originally. Which cards can sell for more than 100,000? I don't know if COMC's even had a card close to 100,000. Could be wrong. All right, we can have start price over here. And we'll st.number input. Again, a little bit different, right? We had dates above, date input. This time we're looking at number input. Then we're going to say start price, like that. Then inside over here, we're going to say min value equals floats min price, like that. And it should be float, not floor. So make that change. Then we'll have max value equals floats max price. And then value equals min price. So value equals floats min price, which I have that here. Copy this, paste it below because we're going to have identical code. And we're going to say end price this time. And instead, for our value over here, we're going to have max price. And then we're going to do the first elif over here. So elif, I'm going to say date range option, well, not date range option, sales price option, which have that over here, equals, say, under 39 cents. Start price equals min price, like that. Then end price equals 0.39. And then I'm just going to copy over the rest of my code, and we should be done with that section. So 75 cents, 250, and then the over 250 on that side of things. And we should be good with those. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to filter again on our data frame. So make sure we have that working properly. We'll move this over here and we'll say filter df, like that, equals filter df. Then we're going to have two things again in here. So let's put that in here. And they're going to be pretty close, so I'm not going to add the other set of parentheses. But inside over here, I'll filter df sales price greater than or equal to this start price. And then do the same thing with this. We'll put end price here. And there is that code. So just to explain it one more time, select box. We covered the select box, if and else over here. So this time we're just taking a look at the sales price. So we're doing numbers essentially instead of dates. I just put a penny to 100,000, did floats because we're working with decimals. And then min price, I always say is 0.01. So that's why we're doing the min price over here. And then we set a max price at the very end because there could be stuff greater than 100,000, but COMC is not the site that you sell $100,000 plus cards on. So you could change it to $1 million, which there's very few cards that sell for $1 million. But I think 100,000 is a good one to start with. All right, so next section we're going to do st.title like that, and we're going to do added versus flipped selector. Okay. And then what we're going to say, and let me show you this section real quick. This is a piece of cake one. So you can either add cards to the website or you can flip cards directly on there. So this gives you the option to choose if you want to just take a look at cards that you added manually or cards that you flipped. Cake to code this out, to be honest. Well, we're going to say added select equals st dot checkbox. And inside over here, we're going to say added value equals true. And then we're going to have flipped select equals st.checkbox. We're going to have over here flipped. Is that it should be capitalized, but in the same thing, value equals true. Then we're going to have a nice if statement over here. So first we're going to say if added select and not flipped select filter df equals filter df. Inside over here, we're going to look at purchase price being null. Okay. Remember, if you added a card to the website, there's going to be zero purchase price. The website has no idea what you paid. Okay. Next thing we're going to look at is an elif. We're going to say elif. And this time we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to say flipped select and not added select. And then just price this over here. And instead of is null, we're going to say not null. Okay. Then we're going to have an elif over here. We're going to say flip select and added select. And filter df equals filter df. We're not changing anything. And then we're going to have an else because someone has to at least put something. We're going to say st.write. Please select one checkbox. So again, select boxes over here, right? Added, flipped. If added and not flipped, we just show the added cards. If flipped and not added, we just show flipped cards. But through this is null and not null. Flipped cards will not be null. You'll have a value of what you purchased them of. And if they're both here, you do nothing to the data frame. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to work on a section called the category selector. And this is a little bit more difficult. So we're going to have 3 sections separated by different categories. Now, I didn't even add in all the categories on here because you can see there's a ton. I don't deal with a lot of these. This is stuff I'll add in the future, right? And probably would take me another hour or so. But this is just an MVP for my videos that I make. And then other sellers, if they want to use it, welcome to do so. And I'm going to make changes, as I've mentioned a few times in this video. Like I didn't even put a select all button in here. That'll be a future ad. When someone requests it, I will build in that feature. And this is free for people to use. Like I'm not getting anything out of it. Although if you do want to hire me for a project, or if you want to buy cards on my COMC store, if you are a COMC seller, cool. Check that out. All right, let's build this one out. We're going to actually do a lot of copying and pasting, but start. So we're just going to say first st.title, and we're going to just call this category selector. And then what you can do in Streamlit, and how I built these columns out, if you go back over here, you can see like everything's just been one column. Now we're doing 3 columns across. So what we're essentially doing is call over here, call 1, call 2, call 3. And that's going to be equal to st.columns. And you can put how many columns you want. I'm doing 3 here. We're going to do another 3 column below. And here's where we're going to start copying and pasting a lot of stuff. So we're going to say with column 1. And I'll do the first one for you guys. We'll say baseball select equals st.checkbox. And we're essentially doing what we did above, right? Value equals true. So we're doing the checkboxes. We're checking them off by default. We're saying the value equals a true, but we're going to do it for all these categories. So for the first one over here I'm just going to paste what I had. So I had baseball, football, basketball, hockey, and soccer. Same thing where value equals true. Then to create your next column, just go over here with call 2. And then I started with golf on this one. And I'll just copy and paste again, just to save your guys time. Copy the code from GitHub, or you can type it out if you want. I just recommend copying it. And then I set up column 3 as well. So with call 3, and if you want to add in the st.write select all button in the future. And honestly, what that button is going to do, select everything, unselect everything. I was working on it initially. I had a bug in it, and I decided to push this forward before solving that. So again, I'll solve it in a future date. All right, so now this is the fun part. We're going to say selected categories like this. This is going to be empty. And we're going to append all these categories. This is a lot of copying and pasting too, but we'll start off with just baseball. So we're going to say if baseball select, and also if you guys know a more efficient way, please let me know, because I always want to improve my code. But we can say selected categories like that. And we're going to append. So append, and we'll append baseball. And essentially, we're going to do it for every category. So I apologize, it's a lot of code. I'm not going to type that out. Instead, I'm just going to copy and paste the code that I know that works in. I had a typo on that one. That's why we had all those errors. But you can see baseball select, right? If it's selected, append it. Football, basketball, all the way through Pokemon. And then lastly, what we're going to do, we're going to say if selected categories like this. We're going to say filtered df equals filtered df. That inside of filtered df, we're going to say sport. Which I know Pokemon's not a sport, but that's how COMC built this out. We're going to say is in, and then we're going to say that selected categories. Okay. And then we're going to say else st.write. Please select at least one category. So to recap this section, we'll go to the very top. So what we're doing is over here, we're creating 3 columns, column 1, column 2, column 3. You can do this by st columns, put 3 with, and this starts you in that first column. I'm just doing select, right? Baseball select. We're having a checkbox. By default, it's true. That's why it's checked in the beginning. For every category, same thing with column 2, column 3. We'll add in this select all button in the future. Then what we're doing is we're appending to this list over here, baseball select, categories to append, all these categories over here, right? If it's this, then we select it over here to this append. And then lastly, we're filtering our data frame, right? We're saying our filtered data frame is equal to sport, and the sport has to be in that list that we're created and appended to, else they need to select at least one category. All right, we are going to move on to our next 3 columns. And we are no longer filtering. Well, in this section, we're going to do some filters for some stats. But now what we're going to do is we're going to build out 2 graphs. Very basic stuff, but I think it's useful as a seller. There's other graphs I want to add in the future, but I have to work with outliers. And I haven't figured out how I'm going to represent that data yet, at least on this display, and how I'm going to deal with outliers, because you can find some cards that will sell for a lot of money, or you like, there's a lot of variability when you're selling cards. Sometimes you sell a $1,000 card, but most of the time you sell like $1 to $2 cards. So like you could just remove that $1,000 sale, but there's going to be some sellers that may not like that. So I have to figure out that at least a little bit, but again, probably another future video. I'll make a part 2 to this probably in a few months once I have more people using this. But regardless, we're going to do the sports. We're going to do decade and stats. So cards manually added, sold, flipped cards sold, serial numbered, sold to eBay, cart, COMC sellers, and then flipped cards. So what was the average price of a card that you purchased on the website? Average price for me is $3.56. So we're going to get into that. And we'll start off with getting our columns. So we're going to create column 4, column 5, column 6 equals st.columns 3. And let's start with column 4. So this is the sport breakdown one. So we're going to say st.title sport breakdown. Then we're going to say sport counts equals, and then we're going to filter data frame sport like that. We're going to do value counts. So value counts that. Then we're going to start plotting. So fig ax equals plt.subplots. X.bar. Then we're going to have sports counts index, sports counts volume, or values, sorry. And then x.set x label. Let's say that's for sport. Y label, it's gonna be our count. Tick. Params, say axis equals x, and rotation equals 90. Equals 90. And then we're gonna plot this. So st.pyplot, put our fig in here, and that should make our first graph. Then we're going to create our second one, and all I'm literally doing is just getting the value counts for each sport and literally just plotting it. So pretty basic to do. We'll say column 5, and the values, right? All the different sports, the counts on those. And then sport, count, axis X, we're rotating those 90. And if you look over here, right, 90 degrees, sport, count associated with it. All right, let me go back over here. Okay, year is going to be a little more interesting, because we're gonna do 10 years at a time. So you can see 1888, 90, 90, etc. And if we go to our sales history, we don't have a year. We have set name, but it does have a year associated with it. And sometimes sets have multiple years, like this 1998 to 1999 Topps Chrome and 86, 87 Flair. So we have to account for that, and let's do that. All right, so now we're going to build out this decade distribution, which you can see I have cards from 1880 all the way through apparently 2030. And those cards haven't came out yet, but I'm doing it by decades, and I have sold good stuff from 2020. So let's start doing that. The first thing I'm going to do, let me go back and over here. I'm actually going to build out some code above. So above these columns, I'm going to create a new column in our data frame. So filter df, and we're going to set something called year. And I'm going to say that's equal to filter df. And we're going to say the set name, that apply. And we're going to extract the year. Extract year. And I'll show you why. If we go back into our data frame over here, we have this column, set name, which has the year of the set. Unfortunately, it's not another column, so we have to extract it out. Also, sometimes we have ranges, this 1894 to 1907. There's like some basketball stuff for like 96, 97, 2020, 21, SPX, 97, 98, Stadium Club. So we have to work on that. Let's build out this extract year. So what we're going to do is build out a function. And we're going to go all the way to the top to do that. In fact, it's going to be ahead of this ST page configuration, or below it, but ahead of this main. So let's do that. DEF extract year. And we're going to say set name like that. And what we're going to do is match equals re.search. And I'm just going to copy and paste what I have over here so I don't make a typo. Make sure to copy what I have in my GitHub. But this will grab the 4 integer numbers that make up a year from the set name. And then we're going to say if match, we're going to return this as an integer now. Return int because it's technically a string. And we're going to say match.group. And again, that this is the string and we're turning it into an integer. And then else, we're just going to return none. Return none. And just like that, it and none should be capital N. That's going to grab that year attached. So now we have that built out, right? We have a year. We can start building out column 5. So what we're going to do, we're going to say if year in our filter data frame dot columns. I'm going to say min year equals int filtered df year dot min. We're going to do the same thing for max. So grab our max this time. Max year and our max like that. Then we're going to say decade start equals min year minus min year percentage 10. So that'll give us our remainder and give us down to a 0 for the start of the decade. And then we'll have decade end next. So decade end equals, and we're going to do max year this time, which we have above over here. And then plus 10 minus, and we're going to do the same thing with this, but we're going to do max year. So max year, get the remainder of that, 10 minus it, and that'll give us the max. So we have 2030. Okay. And then filter df, we're going to create something called decade as a new column. It's going to be equal to pd.cut filtered data frame like that. Year. We're going to have bins equal range. We'll have the decade starts. Oops. And the decade end. Plus 1. Divided by 10. And then right equals false. And outside right. Now, with this chunk out of the way, we can start plotting. So st.title, let's see, decade distribution. That's then decade counts equals filtered df decade value counts that sorts index that, and then we're going to say if not decade counts dot not no empty. That over here we're going to have fig and ax equals plt dot subplots that. Okay. Then we're going to have next is ax dot bar. We're going to have decade counts like that. Dot index dot as type string. Decade counts again. Dot values. X dot set X label decade Y label, it's gonna be our counts. Okay, then X dot tick params axis equals X, then rotation equals 90, st.pyplot fig, then else st.write. I don't think we really needed to have this if else, but just in case, because we are making a lot of changes. No years found in data set, which there always should be, but it's good sometimes to have if else statements, especially in debugging. And then on this side, we're going to say else st.write no set name column found in data sets. And that is how we do column 5. So to explain one more time, we start over here. We're applying the function extract year on the set name column, and we're creating something called year. Essentially, this is a regular expression over here to grab just the year from the set name and return that as an integer. Then we go back down over here, grab the min and max years. Then from those we can figure out when decades start, decade end. again, 1880 through 2030. Man, I'm tired. But lastly, filtered data frame. We have our decade over here. We do the pd.cut by 10, right? Decade start, decade end plus 1. Then we create our graph, right? Just the counts for each decade. And then I just essentially have a bunch of if-else statements. And with that, we are good to move into column 6. All right, so now we're going to build out our last column. So with, let's say, column 6 like that. And we're going to call this title quick stats. So quick stats like that. Let's begin. So the first thing we're going to do is cards added. So cards added, and let me just bring this up over here. We're going to say that's equal to our filtered df. Then inside over here, we're going to look at purchase price. So purchase price is null. It's sum. Okay. Remember, added to the site, there's going to be no purchase price associated with it. So then we could do the opposite. We could say cards flipped. And this should look familiar because we already essentially wrote this in the code. But we can say not null this time. Okay, awesome. Then we can put serial number equals, and we're going to look at filtered df. And the way we know that it's serial numbered is this column over here, the quantity manufactured. There's a number there, it's serial numbered. So inside over here, we're going to say QTY, which like that, manufactured, not null sum. So just copy that. Awesome. Then we're going to look at average purchase price equals filtered df. We're going to look at purchase price like that. And we're going to grab the mean. So mean like that. Not the best statistic, but people want to see that. Then we're going to start writing out some of our different things. So st.write, and I'm not going to bore you guys with these sentences, but I'll just paste them here. So the first one is cards manually added. Then I just threw in that variable. So same thing over here. I should have cards, not card. So that's why those work over there. Awesome. So now we're going to be taking a look at selling cards on eBay versus cart and COMC. So I show that over here, right? So we did the first three. eBay, cart, COMC is next. And again, I can greatly expand this section with other stats. Maybe in the future. I'll see what other people want. And if I have some needs for it too. So what I look at for the eBay count is we're going to say filter df. I should just have this copied and pasted on the keyboard. But this time we're going to look at a column which is purchased by. So purchased by, if there's a name there, that's an individual. If it's eBay, it's eBay. If it's cart, that means it's someone that went to the site and purchased it without being a member of the site. I'd also be curious, like, what members on the site purchased the most from me. I didn't do that in my initial one, but like I feel like that's a good idea to throw in there. Like, who are my most loyal customers? Maybe I'll give them a little bit more discount if they ship me an offer. Or I can see kind of what the strategy that they're running on their account. So just an idea that I had now, but we'll have over here, not filtered by, but purchased by. And for the first one, we're going to say this is equal to eBay. So eBay, that's, well, it's not eBay. eBay like that. And we're going to say sum. So sum, and that's our eBay count. Now, our cart is going to be the same, essentially. So cart looks like that. And then to get all the sellers, we do a COMC count. So opposite, which is the squiggly over here, filtered purchase is in eBay and then cart. So anything that is not is going to be the COMC count. So now we're just going to print these out. I'm not going to bore you with these ST rights, but just put over here COMC users, cart, and eBay. And lastly, the last piece of information I have over here, I'll do st.write. And over here, I'll say average purchase price of flip cards, average price of flip cards, and we're just going to do a round. So round, and we're going to say average purchase price, which we have above over here, and we're going to round it by 2. And that is column 6. So now what we're going to be looking at is this top 10 selling players. When I was sharing my screen for this app, I don't know if I was showing the older one from earlier today or the most updated version. So apologize if this didn't show, but ideally you want to see what players are selling the most for you. So that's why I just built this out. And yeah, I mean, could probably just build out a graph for that in sales, but I put this right here. And let's start coding that out. So the first thing that we're going to do is over here and get out of this column, right? So make sure we're outside of column 6, which it looks like actually needs to move this over a little bit just for it to be in line with everything else. I'm going to fix that really quick. So easy to mess up with formatting. I think that should be correct now. And it is. All right. So now we need to essentially grab names. So here's how we do that. We have to build another function. So what I'm going to say is df name this time equals, and we're going to look at the description column, description, and we're going to apply extract name. Apply extract name. And just to show you why, here's the name column or description, whatever you want to call it. So you can see most of the names are in the left, but then you have things like this All-Star Mike Schmidt. Well, Mike Schmidt's to the right, so we're going to have to get rid of All-Star and this hyphen. And then you have Acuna, but there's this extra junk in the parentheses. We don't need that. So we need to fix that. And this is what I have so far. I need to test this out a little bit more after this video because there is a lot of variance. But it looked like it's somewhat working right now. Again, I have to feed it some more stuff to test. This is just a fun project. But here we go. We're going to create a new function above. We're going to say df extract name. Description is what we're feeding into over here. And description equals, and I'm just going to copy over what I have for the regular expression. And then if in description equals description split here, we're going to do -1. This is, again, we want the right side on that. Let's strip, which is unfortunately the formatting's not pretty basic, but that's all right. And then we're going to say return description strip like that. Awesome. So should be good there for the name side of things. I'll just continue to look at this. All right. And now what we need to do is get the counts for the names. So what we're going to do is top 10 names equals names or name counts dot head, the head of 10, reset index. Top 10 names dot columns equal name counts. And the reason why I'm having this error name counts, I actually skipped over a line. So let me actually fix that really quick. So we have name counts equals df name dot value counts, like that. And now that should fix it. So we're getting the value number times each name is there. Remember the top 10. We're resetting the index. Then we have name and count. Okay. And then what I want to do too, if we go back over here, you can see I start with 1. Usually with index, we start with 0. So we need to change that up. So the way we do that is top 10 names index equals top 10 names. I hate typing that out so many times. Dot index, especially since I coded this out earlier today. Rename rank +1. Awesome. And then st.title top 10 selling players. And then next st.table, and just throw your top 10 names in there. And that will build out this section right here for the top 10 selling players. Now, and maybe I should have put stats breakdown above over here, but actually I think stats breakdown works here. All right, so now we're going to be taking a look at these next sections over here, like the stats breakdown, advanced profit, days to sale, markup, quantile, these returns. These are pretty easy. These are just based off of the stats breakdown, just expanding them out, 10 through 90%. So once we get that, pretty easy to duplicate. We have probably another 80 lines of code, but a lot of it's going to be repetitive. Let's start. So I'll just do another header called stats breakdown. And then I'm just going to copy over what I'm writing. So what I'm saying is assumption the purchase price is 0.5 card listed a site and $2 for anything over $99. That's just the fee to insert a card to the site. So I still want to account for some costs associated with it. There's other costs that I'm going to build into future versions, such as like storage fees. They're minimal compared to the insertion fee, which is 50 cents under $99, $2 over. You could technically pay over $2 for insertion or $1. Like there's a lot of cases where it's different. But these are just standard 0.5 and $2. And that's why I put storage fees too. And we'll make a better version in the future. Also, what I'm going to say is new data df equals filter df. And let's hit the ground running. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the purchase price. So new data df purchase price. Then I'll say dot fill NA. And in here, we'll say new data df. Say sale price dot apply. and say lambda x2 if x over 99, else 0.5. And we're going to say in place equals true. And the reason why we're taking a look at sales price is that's what we're charging on the card. So if it's over the $100, it's $2 for the purchase price if it's blank. Otherwise, it's 50 cents. Okay, now we're going to look at a few stats. So the first one we're going to take a look at is profit. And we're going to create a new column for profit. So we'll say profit. That's equal to new data df. And there's something called COMC credits, which is what you get at the end after a sale. So COMC credit minus, and we're minusing that purchase price. So now we can see how profitable we are. Next is markup. So new data frame, we'll have markup over here. That is going to be equal to 100 times, and what we're going to do on this side of things is new data df sales price, which just copy that there. And then we're going to minus the purchase price. Minus that purchase price. And then outside over here, we're going to divide that also by the purchase price. So that will give us our markup. Then we need days to sale. So how long it takes you to sell a card. So we'll put that here. And the first one we're going to look at is dates sold. So dates sold, we're going to say equals pd dot to date time. Then over here, we're going to say new data df date sold. Format, and I'm just going to copy that format. That's easy for me to mess up, especially coding at 10:40 at night, and I usually wake up around 5:30 in the morning, so a little tired. Okay, and then what we're going to also do is we're going to have acquisition dates, which, by the way, those are both in this data frame. So acquisition date over there, date sold. Yep. And it's going to be essentially the same thing. Except this time we're going to put an acquisition date here. Same format. And then next line, this one's going to be days to sale. And that is going to be equal to inside parentheses, date sold minus acquisition date dot dt dot days. Okay. And then we need to have another calculation, which is annualized return. So let's just say new data df. This is annualized return be equal to, and inside over here, we have the sales price. I believe it's sales price minus purchase price first. So put that in here. Then we have it's this first. well, it's actually just this, and then one other calculation I have to put in here. I have to divide or multiply then 365 divided by days to sale. Which we have that right here. I apologize for not having all this memorized, but there's a lot to this. So let me just double check. 100 times the 365 by days to sale. Yeah. And then all this junk over here. Should be correct. Well, actually, the 100 needs to multiply it after everything. I think there's one more parenthesis around. Not that it matters, I don't think. Let me just double check. 100 times. First thing we need to do. Well, I need to make sure that division is correct. There needs to be a so we have, hold on, let me just redo this. First thing we need to do is, I guess I could have just grabbed the markup and then gone from there, because we're doing sale minus purchase divided by purchase. So we could just put markup there instead of putting this formula. But we're going to take the markup and then times it by 365, divide new data, days to sale, and then 100 times that, which is already in the markup. Yeah, I think that should be good here. If anything, just grab it from my final code. And now what I need to do is we have all the stats that we need. We just need to group them by their specific sports. So just do group df equals new data df, like that. Dot group by, throw your sport in here, say dot ag, and then we're gonna bring all these columns in here, and I'm just gonna copy and paste them. We have profit, sum, markup, median. So profit is the sum of it, right? Markup is the median markup. Days of sale median on that. Annualized return median. Sales price, we want to have the sum and the count. I am getting a small error, so let me just grab all of that over here. I had one extra parenthesis somewhere. We're doing the aggregates because we're grouping by that sports. And then the next thing I do, and I know it's getting a bit late in this video, not just here, but I'll just rename the columns so you can see profit sum, markup median, days of sale median, just specifying the aggregates I have on those. And then essentially just placing them in the order that I want, which is this next one over here. Next thing I do, I'll type this one out because it's not a lot of typing, but we'll say group df equals grouped df. I round everything to 2 places because it looked pretty messy the first time I did it without that. And then I'm going to sort it. So grouped df sorted, like that, equals grouped df dot sort values by equals profit sum, and then ascending equals false, ascending equals false. Okay. And I showed you a data frame earlier. You can also, or I showed you, you can print out a data frame, a table. You can also print it by data frame. So st.dataframe, like that. And inside over here, group df sorted, we'll say width equals 1000, height equals 700. All right. I'll explain everything one more time. So what I did over here, purchase price, which is sales. We take a look at the sales price. If it's empty, $2. It's above 99, otherwise 50 cents. Profit is COMC credit minus purchase price. Markup, sales price minus purchase price, date sold, right? Acquisition date, we just changed daytime. Days of sales, subtracting those, getting the days. Annualized return, takes a look at markup, and then 365 associated with it. Then grouping everything by the sport, grabbing the medians because I like that better than average. Columns, rounding by 2. Sorting by what's most profitable sport, and then just printing out the data frame with ST data frame. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the profit. Well, we're going to really look at all the rest of these over here. So these quantiles 10 through 90 across the board. A lot of copying and pasting now, and we're like at the home stretch of this. So let's finish strong. I'm tired. I want to go to bed, but I don't want to record this tomorrow. So we're going to power through this. So I think we're on advanced profit was the first one. Yeah, advanced profit. All right, so profit deciles over here equals, we're doing our still new data df. Is here. Let's say group by sports, group by, which I guess I could literally just grab this above. So our sport over here, we're gonna grab profits, then just quantile, and then you can specify. I'm gonna just copy and paste what I had. This is gonna be a lot faster. And you saw also my source, or not source code, but the Streamlit app 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then unstack. Okay. Up next, what we're gonna do, and I can't even spell profit, but what we're gonna do next, if I go over here, we're gonna say profit deciles dot reset index, like that. We'll see if this equals true. Okay, awesome. Then we're gonna name the columns. So columns, and what I did, and I'll just copy and paste this. Sports 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Then I'm going to round again. So equals dot round 2. And then we're going to print this out. So st.dataframe, like that. And we're going to throw this over here. Width equals 1000, and then height equals 100. Awesome. And I'll just double check I have everything. So header, the group by, reset index, new columns, rounding. Yeah. So essentially for the other stuff, you can just keep repeating this format. I'll just show you a few others really quick. And I'm just going to copy the source code, right? So days of sale, right? I just called this DTS, group by sport. We just throw days to sale here. Again, we calculated all this above, so we might as well use it. Same thing, the quantile unstack in place, sport 10 through 90, round 700, right? Markup. Just go throw markup over here. Just make sure everything, same thing, right? Grab markup 10 through 90 again. And then the last one we have is our annualized return. Same exact code, just change up a few other things. And lastly, we need one more thing to finish off the code on here. So if name equals main And that is the first version of the app. So what we did today, we accomplished a lot. So essentially, we just grabbed a CSV file from a website with our seller stats. We uploaded it over here. We could upload multiple years. We could set up specific filters based off of date ranges, sold, acquired, sales, added, flipped, category, selector. See sports decades, some quick stats, highest, most selling players, by count. Maybe we'll throw in dollar amount in the future, and you can see stats breakdown, profit, sales amount, sales count, markup, days to sale, and annualized return, and then breakdowns by quantiles, which is awesome. Because again, if I go back over here, all we get as a seller, go to dashboard, is, you can see I sold some cards while making this video, which is awesome. What I get is this over here, which is kind of sad. I wish they had a full reporting dashboard, but essentially we're building a dashboard from a CSV file. So sometimes you have to work a little backwards. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to do my outro now. So that was my data science project that involved cards. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Look, I probably made a few mistakes in here, and that's going to happen in a long video like this. It's a few hours. So make sure to check out my GitHub. Some things are going to be obviously updated in the future because I'm going to keep on improving this app. And I use it on my second YouTube channel, which if you do collect cards, make sure to check out is Breakout Cards. Now, if you are looking for anyone to hire for data projects, I am available for freelance work. So feel free to email me or check out my website. And if you want to continue learning more about data analytics or data science, I have some other videos in the description and playlists on the channel. So check them out. I'm tired. I have to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow. So I will see you guys in another video.